I got my fancy mic on. I've been using that lately.
Oh, yeah, you're good. Oh, crap. Kate, you're on.
Oh, we're on.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Native Wellness Power Hour. Hey, and you probably just saw our executive director, Jolene Joseph, on there, and we're just chatting away and having a conversation as we're going here. And let me see here. I had to check a few things out real quick, and share this and invite other people in, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. And make sure we get things going here. Let's see, where are we at? Oh, here we go. Lately.
Oh, yeah, you're good. Oh, crap.
So welcome. How you guys doing? Is everybody out there? Let me see here. Looks like we got 16 viewers and a dedicated viewer, Jewel Lamb. Good to see you out there. It's always good to see you. So hey, this is the Native Waters Power Hour. My name is Gene Tagaban. My Tlingit name is Gael. I'm of the Duckdane Tong clan, Raven Freshwater Sockeye clan from Hoona, Alaska, the child of a Wishkatan Eagle Shark clan from Juan in Juneau, Alaska. Cherokee, Tlingit, and Filipino. On my Cherokee side, my mother's maiden name is Summerfield, and her Cherokee name is Weech. And she traced our lineage back before the Trail of Tears, before to the place that is now called Georgia and Tennessee. And I'm of the Wolf clan on my Cherokee side, and oftentimes I wonder how many relatives I would have uh, if it was not for that trail. That trail, many relatives passed on and perished, and many relatives were born. But I'll tell you what, I know that there's still that resilience and that perseverance that are that's in the spirit of the people, and that runs in me. And I see it in my mom, see it in my mother. I'm also part Filipino, and so my Filipino side, my last name is Tagaban, and the Filipino in the Philippines they pronounce it as Tagaban. And my grandfather comes from Bantock, and my great grandfather comes from Ilocos Norte. And so Ganeshi Shawado Salama po. And it's really good to be here. We are being sponsored at this time by the Noise Foundation, and my hands go up to the Noise Foundation. Thank you so much for all your support, for not only for us, the Native Wellness Institute, but for just so much other Native communities that you support and you work with out there, and you're on the front lines bringing that awareness about the justices, social justices, and the healing out there for the people. So the Noise Foundation, thank you so much. So with the Native Wellness Power Hours, we are on program number 291 and week 52. This Sunday, we are going to be celebrating in a way, yeah, acknowledging that we've been on and doing these power hours for a whole year. Believe that? A whole year. And we started the power hours just to during the closure of this pandemic, just because it was we knew that a traumatized people would be re-traumatized. And since everything closed up on our schedule, we're used to going out to the communities and working with the people, but everything just shut down, all our calendars, all our events, just like so many other people out there. We got together and we were talking about what are we going to do now? What are we going to do now? And so we figured, well, let's provide some healing. Let's provide some workshop. Let's provide some relief. And so that's where we created the power hours. And thank you for viewing in. Thank you for coming in and taking part. And so share the link, share it with other people. And today what I'm going to be talking about is about role models in our lives. And hang on a sec, I just in my background I hear my dog. Hey, stop that. Yeah, you stay over there. my dog scratching away and just licking away at his paws and things like that. So I heard it on the background. And so role models in our lives. And first of all, I just want to share is that many of you heard me say this, that our life is a story. Our life is a story. And we're the storytellers of this, of our lives, you know, and right now, with you being here, viewing in, now I am part of your story and you are part of my story. And your story is this long, lifelong story. But right now, what we have right here, what puts together our life story are the moments, the small chunks, the small moments in our life, in our life. And what we have right here is just a moment, a moment. And so that's why so many times our moments are so sacred. And you'll hear elders talking about that too, is just to really appreciate the moment. And I'm seeing more and more of that as I'm aging, as I'm getting older. And I know when I was younger, I used to take it for granted, take it for granted. But as I age, I'm getting older. I'm starting to appreciate the moments, you know, the moments um, of just being present, the moments of, especially with family, you know, especially since we've been away from family, you know, and um, yeah, isolated in our own place. You know, I'm fortunate to have Ruby in my life. Uh, we've been able to spend this time together. Ruby's my life partner, my wife, my best friend. You know, and, and thank goodness that I can say I've enjoyed. I'm blessed to be able to be in the same space with her. Now I don't know if she could say the same thing if she would say that she's blessed to be in the same space with me. Yeah, I think she would. I'm pretty positive she would, and at least I hope so. She might even be listening right now. But it's a but yeah, just to take those moments, and appreciate them. You know, during this pandemic too, where things are closed down, I was taking those moments for myself also to go for walks or riding my bike or going to the water. I live right next door to a park, the second largest city park in the country, second only to Central Park. We have old growth in there and great trail system, and you know a great population of animals, deer, birds, fed a bear in there at times. And but when things hit, everything just closed down, and that includes the parks. That includes the parks. But I made my way in there. I made my way in there. They allowed people to walk or ride bikes, and I was riding my bike and hiking around in there. But it was amazing, you know, in our moment of our lives, a moment of our lives, and watching and keeping an eye out for those moments. So many times we walk in the world looking like this, and you see so many people walking in the streets on the pavement, walking around like this, or even walking around like this so much. And that's, you know, we just got our that tunnel vision. But when we're out there in the woods, in the forests, wherever we're at, to start looking around and seeing the world like this. And it's one of those things, you know, role models are everything, and anything could be a role model for you. Anything. We can learn something from anything, and they could be our teachers. And I want to say that because our ancestors, sure, when we mention the word ancestors, we always think about our human relations, our two-legged relations, you know, and then, but there's also the four-legged, you know, and then the plants, you know, and the insect. They or those in the waters. They are also our ancestors, and we learn so much from them. And they're our role models. Our role models. You know, and it's one of those things too. When the things everything closed down, I was going to that park. There wasn't any car traffic. any road traffic, and very few people, if any at all. And the roads, the pavement, plant life started to grow on top of it. Plant life started to grow on top of it. Mosses. The birds were coming out more. And as I was riding my bike by, they'd just be right on the road right next to me. The deer actually started to show up more. And as I'm riding my bike by, I could actually reach out and stroke its fur, its hide, its back. You see, everything out there was started to heal. And I really got to know that how quick nature can heal. And in learning that too about how quick nature can heal, if you give it a chance, I see that within people too, human beings, our relatives, our native peoples, even myself, that how quick we can heal if we give ourselves a chance. If we give ourselves a chance, we're part of nature. We're part of the earth. We're part of the land. And thinking about that healing and those role models in my life. There's a story out there about a bear and a hunter went out there and he had a spear and he went to go hunt this bear, big brown bear. And he took the spear and he, skillfully moved in onto this bear. And then he struck this bear. And right when he was just about to get it right there in the heart, the bear flinched. And instead of getting him in that chest and that heart area, he got him in that shoulder area. And the bear started to run off, wounded. And so this young man, this hunter, he went and he followed this bear. And he followed this bear to a place where he went. And he went to the place to get medicine. In Alaska, they call it skunk cabbage. He went to and grabbed the roots and the mud. He grabbed the roots in the mud and started to pack that wound with that medicine, that skunk cabbage and that mud. And then that bear went and started to climb to the top of the mountain. And he started to use that leg more. And he came up to a place where everything was fog. When you're in the clouds, when you get up to a certain place, you're there in the clouds and everything was just dense. Couldn't see anything. Well, this young man, he kept following this bear. And he saw this bear and he followed the bear. This bear came to an edge of a cliff, it seemed like. Came to the edge of the cliff and jumped in and over. As if he jumped off this long, just deep, long fall off this cliff. The young man, he ran over there to see what had happened. And the bear did not jump off this cliff, but below was this beautiful lake. It wasn't even a lake, it was a mountain pond. And the water was just blue, almost bluish green, this water. And he knew that water was just cold because there was still snow around it. And this bear jumped into this water and swam to the other side. It was as if that all that fog cleared around this pond as well. And that bear crawled out on the other side, shook himself off, and looked back. looked back at this young man and looked back at him and then wandered off. See, medicines are all over the place. That bear knew where to go. That bear was taught him about that medicine of the skunk cabbage, the medicine of the mud, the minerals, packing it in there. See, the young man didn't know that before. And that bear also taught that young man about the power of healing waters. Of healing waters. There's so much knowledge in our stories if we just take a look and listen to them. But those healing waters, that bear went up to those healing waters that was just blue green, those cold, cold waters. And I don't know about you, if you've ever been in those here streams or even in that cold, cold water, and you come out of it, it's like as if you're waking up. It affects your whole system. And deep internally, it affects it. That cold water. See, that bear was teaching them, just like it teaches you and me, as I just told you the story about the water is life, the cold water, and how do we heal? And how do we heal? Yeah. I know there's medicines around, and as I age more too, I'm seeing more and more the value of the cold water. That cold water. I like to go into the cold water myself. And then even as I go into the water itself is a role model for us. What is it? What does the water teach us? And as I'm sharing with you this today, I'm just asking you to be aware of your own experiences. What is coming up for you in your mind, your thoughts, your voices, your internal voices? What's going on coming up for you inside your chest and your heart, or even in the area, your core and your stomach, as I'm sharing these things with you? Be aware of your own experiences, because your story is your story. It's nobody else's. It's yours. And it's that imagined story. And I'll oftentimes I tell people too, like, welcome to my hallucination, because my story is my own personal hallucination. And I feel that the only thing that's really real is when you go out into the forest. And I was taught that once you cross in that threshold from the trail, the road into the forest, you have stepped into the threshold of spirit. That forest is spirit. And then when you go up to the waters, and you can see the waters there. But then you have it's like a membrane, that water. And then when you put your hand into the water, or you put your foot into the water, then you have now broken that membrane, and you're starting to break into that threshold of spirit, the water. And our indigenous peoples all over the world, our indigenous peoples know this. And I'm not saying knew it. Our indigenous people know this. And I know for myself, just that experience of going into the water and just letting that water embrace me as I embrace the water. That cold water, going to that cold water. And I was taught too that the closer to the source, the stronger the healing it is. And I say closer to the source. That source is up in the mountains, closer to the glacier where that water comes from. And that water is cold, 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 cold. But it'll heal you. And the water itself is a role model. What can we learn from the waters? What can we learn from the waters? And what is that telling you right now as I'm asking you that question? What can you learn from the waters? Yeah. And I was out there in the Nisqually River. I saw the source of where the Nisqually comes from, up there, up on the mountain. And I remember as I'm standing there in the Nisqually River, letting it go over me and acknowledging the river. You see, because that river, that Nisqually River, man, that Nisqually River has been there before human beings. Many of the trees, many of the animals. That Nisqually River is an ancestor. And as I'm standing there in the lowlands of the Nisqually, I realized that, yeah, the mountain, that river is bringing the mountain down to me. That river is bringing that mountain down to me. And as I immerse myself into that water, and it's as if I just become with it, as if I just get swept down the shore and I just get recycled back up into the air, and the water particles, and then back down, up onto the mountain and back down again. And it happens in a moment like that. Yeah, I love that. I love that water. And I want to encourage you to go see the water. And when you drink the water, just simply just say thank you. Thank you. We learned something from everything. Everything around us is a role model to teach us. One of my greatest teachers I want to share with you, is Mr. Frank. And I'm not going to share his real name, but I'm going to call him Mr. Frank. Now, Mr. Frank, he moved onto our neighborhood, not to, a few houses down, and Native family. We welcomed him in. Welcome to the neighborhood. Yeah. But soon after they moved in, we discovered and realized that Mr. Frank was an alcoholic. Now, he wasn't one of these alcoholics that were just like these casual drinkers or binge drinkers. I mean, he was a full-blown alcoholic, blackout, sometimes mean, alcoholic. And there are often times where the kids, my mother being a nurse, the kids would run over to the house and ask for my mom to come over because Mrs. Frank got beat up or hit in the head with something. She was bleeding or had a cut. And so my mom would go over there without hesitation. Without hesitation, she'd go over there. She didn't care if he was there drunk or anything, whatever. She would go over there and patch her up. Now, Mr. Frank, he was a role model to me. He was a role model to me in a way that I saw someone that I didn't want to be like. I saw someone I didn't want to be like. And there's role models like that. Yes, there's those role models out there in your life that, yeah, you see them, those that you want to be like. You want to, copy what they're doing, be like them. And then there's those role models that will show you how not to be. And Mr. Frank was one of those. Because sometimes he would just get so intoxicated that he would be out in his front yard in a blackout, no shirt on, maybe just shorts, no shoes, socks on. And he'd be in a blackout and doing his kung fu or copying something that only his unconscious saw in his drunken blackout. So I want to say is that, yes, Mr. Frank was someone who I did not want to be like, yet he was somebody who taught me about how to be. As I watched Mr. Frank in his drunken blackout, I was just a small kid. How old was I? I was like in second, third grade. I started to realize that in his drunken blackout, he was actually reenacting and telling stories of his own experience in his life. But not only that, but he was starting to tell stories about bear, salmon, killer whale, raven, fishing, hunting. I would sit there and I would just watch him. Unfortunately, this happened all the time. That's how much of an alcoholic he was. And I just can't help but but think about how much hurt and pain and trauma that he went through as a human being to like get to that point. But as a uh, in third grade, fourth grade, I would just sit there and watch Mr. Frank as he's reenacting out these stories, and everybody else is making fun of him. But it was like I saw beyond that. I was able to see that he's telling us stories, and he wanted us so much. Hear me, hear me, hear me, notice me. And I was just a kid, third or fourth grade, noticing him, watching him as he told stories, sharing with us his life story and moments within his life story. You know, I met Mr. Frank years later when I was an adult in Anchorage, Alaska. I was getting a coffee. And this was probably, I'd say maybe about 15 years ago now. And I was up in Anchorage, and I was getting coffee. And I was standing in line. And in walks in was Mr. Frank, much older, worn out. He looked sober, but it was he had that look, those ones when you could tell that the alcohol and all the years of abuse and his own demons and the trauma got to him. And that trauma got to him. You see it in their eyes. They have that faraway look. That faraway look. And Mr. Frank had that look. But I waved him over. He was my elder. I said, Mr. Frank, come on in. Here, take this place right here in line, right in front of me. He walked up and just kind of looked at me and acknowledged me. And then I said, Mr. Frank, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I was a young man who lived on the street in Southeast Alaska. I used to watch you. And I just want to say, Mr. Frank, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for teaching me how to tell stories and the value of the story and the value of the moment. Thank you for teaching me to pay attention to people, no matter where they're at, whatever condition they're in. I want to say thank you. Onachish. And he looked at me as if I was crazy. Who are you? I don't remember who you are. But he said, you're welcome. You're welcome. I said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? He says, yes, sure. So I bought him that cup of coffee and he just stood there. And when I was walking out, I looked back and he just was standing there looking at me as if he was searching his memory as, where do I know this young man? Where do I know him? And as I was walking out the door, I looked back again and then he looked at me and goes, oh, I remember you. Your mother. She's a nice lady. And I walked out. Mr. Frank has since passed on. I heard he passed on a park bench up in Alaska. His children grew up to be beautiful people. His children grew up to be beautiful people. Wanting to make something different of themselves other than what they grew up in. And what they grew up in. Yeah, role models are everywhere. And if we take a look and look at life in this way, as opposed to like this, Yeah, I'm just here, just sharing with you a little bit of stories, sharing with you a little bit of my story. My hallucination, welcome. And those of you who are just joining us right now, my name is Gene Tagaban, and we're talking about role models are everywhere. And this is with the Native Wellness Institute Power Hour, and sponsored by the Noise Foundation. We're on program 291, week 52, a year. It's been a year since we've been doing these things. And we'll be continuing to do these. This will be part of our normal programming now. Part of our normal programming. You know, shoot, as you know, and I can't help but like talk about one of my main role models in my life is my mom. My mother. Man, powerful. You know, all those I just got to feel fortunate too, you know. It's like, because I have a mom, and I feel fortunate that I have a mom and I grew up with a mom. I grew up with a dad as well, and I know that's not the case for a lot of people. That's not the case for a lot of people. So it's one of those things. I mean, I you know, having that gift and having that opportunity to be raised with a mom. She's still around. She's powerful. My mom's awesome. But I can't take her for granted, man. Because I'll tell you this, my mom was raised without a mom. My mom, full blood Cherokee. She was born in Jay, Oklahoma, raised in Xena, Oklahoma, small community. her mother passed on like a month, 2 months after she was born, from complications of birth, of bringing her into the world. And I truly believe that apparently she tried to have children before that, but it didn't work out. But uh, my grandmother, my mom's mom, I have this belief that she was going to, no matter what, bring this child into the world. She loved this child so much that she was willing to sacrifice herself to give this child life. And so my grandfather was a woodsman. He was a woodsman. And he had no idea on how do I raise this little baby. And so he went to my mother's grandmother and said, here, can you raise this child? Please. I can't. I don't know how. I don't know how. And so my grandmother, or my mom's grandmother, took this child in and raised her as her own. And she was kind of tough. I mean, some of those old, those old elders, man, those grandmas, they can be tough, strict, won't let you get away with anything. But she was a medicine person. She was a medicine person. And she taught my mom about healing, collecting the herbs, working with people, working with people. And and one day, I think it was my mother, she told me the story when we're standing on the land in Oklahoma that she was raised at, standing next to the creek where she used to swim at, where she took us to go swimming as a young child, my brother and I, in this creek. She showed us up there on those hills right there in that area right there. There's no grave markers or anything, but that is where your grandmother, your grandfather, and your relatives are buried there. And all it is just a hill now that you can see, no markers. And she told us about the story about how this whole area right here, this land area, is where my grandfather grew tobacco. And I walked out there and I still saw the wild tobacco now. I was going, wow, these are the shoots, the children of the tobacco that my great great grandfather grew. She told us all about the whole area there in Oklahoma where she grew up at. And then my mom told us the story about how when she was a young girl around 13, that right in that next to the creek, she pointed it out right there is where my grandfather or my grandmother fell over and she died in her arms. And she died in her arms. My mother said she must have had a stroke or something, but she just stayed there for a couple of hours because nobody knew where they're at. No phones at the time. They just went by the light of the day. And it was my grandfather went out there with the horse to find her. And there they found my grandmother had passed on and my mother holding her. Now I wonder what it would be like, it's like, I think it was like, there's some people there that they say that when somebody passes on that they become lighter. And then when you're there in that moment where somebody passes on, it's like that energy or that is passed on. Some people say it's that weight of a feather. The weight of a feather is equal to the weight that is lost when somebody passes on. And I can't help but think about how, as my grandmother was being held by my mother at such a young age, that and that moment, that energy, that light, and that spirit was passed on to my mother. I believe it was. I believe it was. And so my mother, she grew, she went to nursing school, became a helper herself, became a healer herself in her own way. And it was one day I was living in Bellingham, Washington. I was living in Bellingham, Washington. And I walked into a Starbucks there in Bellingham, Washington. I was in my early 40s, I think, somewhere around there. And sitting in a chair was a man, rugged clothing, rugged beard, you know, wrinkles in his face. His hands looked rough. His fingers were kind of bent. You could tell he's lived a hard life. And he sat there and he had a cane or a crutch on the floor there. I said, oh, must be something wrong with his leg. He needs that crutch. You know, I noticed that he was native and he looked like he was Alaskan native. So I went up to him there in that Starbucks. I said, hello. He kind of looked up at me, didn't say anything. I said, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And then he sat back and says, who the heck do you think you are? You don't even know me. You don't know me and I don't know you. So why are you offering me a cup of coffee? What do you want? What do you want? Just leave me alone. I didn't ask you to come over here. I didn't ask you to bother me. Go away. Just go away. I'll go. Cook. Then when he said that, I said, let me try something. So I introduced myself and she's like, yeah. Kaya yakto sok tak tang tan mishkatanya. Gonna choose. And then when he heard that, his eyes kind of lit up and he looked at me. He says, who are you? What's your name? I told him, Gene Tagaban. Tagaban, he said, you related to that nurse. She works there in the clinic. I go, yeah, Wilma, that's my mom. That's your mom? That's your mother, that nurse. Oh, sit down. But first, before you sit down, go get me that coffee that you owed me, that you offered me. And so I went and got a cup of coffee, set it in front of him. He wanted a couple creamers and a sugar. And he sat down. He goes, let me tell you something about your mom. She watches over me. Your mom, she's like an angel. All those people on the streets, us old ones, she watches over me. She said, she always comes up to me, Dan, that's what his name was, Dan. Got to take care of your leg. You only got one left. Got to take care of your leg, take care of your foot. And I looked underneath the table, and sure enough, that crutch that he had wasn't just for a leg that he was hurt. I noticed that he was missing his leg. He was missing his leg. I said, but your mom, let me tell you something about her. Every time I go into that clinic, she always greets me with dignity. She always greets me with dignity. She always greets me, Dan, how is your foot? Oh, it's a little sore today, I have to admit. We'll go in that room over there, I'll be right in. And I'll go in there, sit down. And about 10 minutes later, she'll come in with a pan of warm water and soap and some rags. And she'll say, Dan, you only have one foot left. You need to take care of it. You need to take care of your foot. And she'll get down on her hands and knees and she'll like take off my shoe or my boot, take off my sock, and then she'll put my foot in that pan. And then she'll like take the soap and start washing my foot, washing my foot. And the whole time she's telling me about how you need to take care of yourself, Dan. If your feet get hurt, then it's going to affect the rest of you. And I know how grumpy you can be when you don't feel good. And it starts with your feet, Dan. But since you only have one foot, you got to take care of it. Got to take care of it. But your mom would sit there and she would wash my foot. And then she would like take and she would start cutting my toenails. I didn't ask her to do that. In fact, it was kind of embarrassing, but she would sit there and say, "Oh, be quiet, Dad. Be quiet." And she would cut my toenails. I got to tell you this. I remember my mother when my brother and I, we get out of the bath, but she would sit there and she would take care of our feet. Tell us about how we needed to take care of our feet. She would cut our toenails. And to be honest with you, I thought that was only that was just something my brother and I ever experienced from her. That love she showed us. She showed her children, taking care of us. But my mother, it was that love she showed everyone. That love she showed everyone. So she took care of Dan's feet, had him, helped him out. And when my dad sat there and told me the story about my mom, this is, I want you to sit to tell your mom I said hi, and it's an honor to meet the son of such a nice lady. To meet this young man of this lady who would take care of my, help me. This young man who came up and offered me a cup of coffee out of nowhere. You tell your mom that she did a good job with you. Yes. Konachish. Konachish. So who in your life? Who in your life are your role models? Influences you, guides you. Someone that you can, as you're in there, you can like go, how would my mom do it? Or how would Lois do it? Another role model of mine. Or how would Ghislaine do it? What would he say at this time, this moment? How would Kuchich, Chris do this? Or not only that, I need to have patience. How is that cedar tree? How can that cedar tree teach me patience, or the strength of that bear, or the eyesight of the eagle or raven? Everything around you is your role model. But we need to like start teaching ourselves to look through the world like this instead of this. We got to start searching and looking for those things, those beings out there, and those spirits that are so willing to teach us. We got to be open ourselves to the possibility, to that possibility. Because those role models could be the homeless man on the street for you, teaching you something. It could be those nurses that are out there doing their work, teachers, children, your dog, the weather, the water, the mountains. And how can you be a role model for yourself? Looking in the mirror. How can you be a role model for yourself looking into the mirror? Yeah. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for joining me today as I just shared a few stories, shared a little bit of spirit with you. And be aware of your own experience. Be aware of your story as we walk through this world. Because one day I will be that elder. I hope. And I know one day I will be that ancestor. So what can I do now? What's my role now? What's my role now? And what story am I going to tell? What story am I going to tell? With my life. Our life is a story. So with that, thank you for joining me in this moment in my story. I'm part of your story, you're part of mine. And I just want to encourage everyone just to say one of the greatest things, acknowledgments that we can ever say and out there in the world is simply to say thank you. We don't say it enough. We don't say it enough. So my name is Gene Tagaban, and this is the Native Wellness Power Hour, sponsored by the Noise Foundation. We're on program 291, and this is week 52. It's been a year. And on this, I believe it's this Sunday, we're actually going to go on as the board, as a Native Wellness um, uh, team, and we're going to do a special program on Sunday in acknowledgement of a 1 year of these power hours. Man, it's been a year. What a story that is. And so with that, I just wanted to say blessings, blessings, blessings. Konechish, konechish, wado, salamat, miigwech, taku, koyanak, koyana, hawa. Uh, blessings, blessings, blessings. I'm going to leave a little early here because I got to go right on to another uh, gathering workshop with the Chehalis peoples. So, gonna choose. Thank you all. Thank you all.